Now, obviously, we needed to justify our field recording trip in the first place, and we wanted to go and do some hiking and some exploration and all these different things, but what was the reason behind it? Well, working on Hogwarts Legacy, there were lots of different in-game locations. There were lots of different landscapes, different biomes, types of environments that needed lots of sounds, and we bought all of the ambience libraries that we could find. Not necessarily everything, but everything that pertained to the content that was in game at the time. We'd gone through a sound effect and boom and everything else, but we decided we need something extra. We were also missing a lot of the local wildlife. So Hogwarts itself is based up in Scotland, and we needed something that tried to capture the environment and the ambiences of the UK and specifically Scotland as well. We also thought this would be a good opportunity to bring the team closer together. I mentioned Callum and Ben before. They just joined us as audio interns not long before we went on the trip. So we were looking for a way of essentially bringing them into the fold, getting them up to speed with the game, and getting to know them better as well. Now, we had ideas of the ideal trip. Of course, we'd love to go up to Scotland and stay there for weeks and capture everything we could find. But the reality, of course, is different. The location, we thought about Scotland, we thought about Galloway Forest Park, other national parks up there. But of course, we started to think about New Forest because of where it was, its proximity to where we were developing, which was in Brighton and Hove on the south coast of England, just south of London. We had to think about background noise. Ideally, we'd have a location that had no vehicles, no other background noise, but in the UK, especially in the south of England, that's quite hard to find. We're a very densely populated island, and there's a lot of roads and various other things around here that make noise. So things like train lines, planes, you can see the flight radar airspace here. The southeast of England is actually one of the busiest airspaces in the world, and so you've got lots of air traffic that can muddy up recordings. And cars as well. So you've got lots of main roads, lots of even B roads that start to carry lorry noise and other traffic into your recordings as well. And there's also the consideration of distance and cost and time. If we travel too far, we spend the time traveling rather than actually recording. And we spend the budget on either flights or trains or petrol to get to the location. Finally, there's the weather. Now, British weather is very variable. Pablo's based just north of Madrid, and so we're always joking about how terrible it is here. But we did actually want to capture a range of weather situations. So not just calm days with no wind and just bright sun. We wanted to manage to get lots of different wind, and considering birds as well, birds don't really like being out and singing in torrential rain or gale force winds. So we had to make sure we had a mix of different weather conditions and also birdsong as well. Now, we focused on the New Forest National Park in the end, and New Forest is north of the Isle of Wight to the southwest of London. And you can see here on the bottom right, it's a very large tract of land. It's a 70,000 acre site, 280 square kilometers. And yes, has roads and things running through it now, but it's one of the most untouched parts in the south of England. It's a special area of conservation. It has lots of different accolades and awards and different, say, preservation orders. If I listed them all on this slide, it would go off the bottom of the screen. But it means that it is rich in wildlife. You've got birds, which is the main thing we were looking for. Interestingly, it has all three varieties of native British snake, which is pretty cool, and roaming cattle. You might see some of this later on in some images. Wild horses or semi-wild horses and other cattle roaming around the park as well. Importantly, it's away from a lot of road and air traffic. You can see in the bottom right there, the A31 cutting through, but a lot of the other roads are much smaller. And there are areas, especially nearer Lyndhurst, which are right in the middle of this park where you're starting to get away from all that traffic. Here is the aviation map, the aviation chart for the Southampton airspace. And you can see by the time you get to Lyndhurst, which is to the west-southwest of Southampton, you're actually above that controlled airspace. So planes coming out, and especially single or twin propeller planes, less likely to muddy up the recordings there.
Let's not talk tiny about the equipment we took with us. So the gear we used is a combination of what we already had at the studio, plus equipment I've been purchasing for myself during these years. In summary, we managed to get 3 different recorders and 3 different sets of microphones. This allowed us to record up to 3 different locations simultaneously. What all these microphones have in common is very low self-noise. The recorders are also famous for their good preamps. Another thing worth mentioning is, of course, portability. We had to carry them for long walks and possibly hide them. So in other words, that means to us the smaller and the lighter the gear is, the better. The hike would be more enjoyable, and we would definitely have a better sleep if we knew the equipment was hidden properly. There's a nice variety of equipment here. We brought with us a 32-bit recorder like the MixPre 6. We also brought the Zoom F8, which has 8 XLR inputs, and a recorder that fits in pretty much any pocket, such as the super famous and super reliable D100. For the mics, 8040s, which are cardioid mics, and the long mics, which are all omnidirectional. So we had several polar pattern options. The Sennheiser MKH series is well known for performing better than other mics in extreme humidity and weather conditions. And well, like Alex said, I'm Spanish, and I unfortunately don't have too much faith in British weather. Another thing to factor in is wind protection. In this case, we went for Rycote and Bumblebee. And other equipment we tend to ignore, but it's as important as any mic or recorder. Those are batteries, SD cards, tape, cables, or dry bags. Since the goal of the trip was not only to capture sounds for a game, but also to expand our technical knowledge, trying out different stereo configurations was something we definitely wanted to do for the good of the team. And this also shows the versatility of the equipment. We could have all sorts of different setups in the field. Two stereo configurations we used were ORTF with the 8040s plugged into the MixPre. If we wanted something wider, we had the option of using a couple of long uses in AB plugged into either the MixPre 6 again or the Zoom F8. And if we wanted something even wider and more immersive, we also had 4 long uses that could be tapped to a tree and turn that into a 3-ear setup in quad. We also had a couple of lavalier mics, like the micro uses that would go with the D100. However, one thing I have to say is that the pickup pattern of a microphone helps you up to some degree, but it's not the answer to everything. The most effective way to include or exclude sounds from your recording, in my opinion, is to find the most suitable distance between the mic and the source. Well, out there in the field, most of the time, that's something you definitely cannot control. I guess that's the magic of field recording.
Absolutely.
Well, that's me.
So looking at other gear, things that aren't necessarily audio related, navigation was a big consideration for this, and maps. I've got my prop. I don't know whether you can see this here. This is my New Forest Ordnance Survey map, and this came around like a Bible when we were going around New Forest. I got a lot of stick for it from the rest of the folks on the trip, but having a paper copy of a map let us actually sit either when we were taking a quick break or at the end of the day and look at where we'd been, and we covered a lot of distance on foot each day. A compass that goes along with this, and so we start to become the explorer that you can see Pablo rocking the gear of here on the right hand side. Phones, of course, essential, but not going to work if we run out of battery or can't charge them. But also the coverage was terrible there. So making sure we had the content downloaded beforehand. So if we're using a digital map on the phone, making sure we've gone into Google Maps or whatever you use and actually downloaded everything in advance back in the hotel or on the road. There were also some practical considerations as well. So food and drink. This might sound obvious, but when you're hiking for as far as we did each day, and you're not really stopping apart from when you get the odd lunch break, which happens to be quite short, having enough supplies that aren't audio related on you is actually really helpful. Clothing, again, Pablo modeling this here, having suitable footwear. There's a lot of hiking we're doing, so that's really important. Considering the weather, if it starts to rain, and especially if it starts to rain heavily, we can't really do anything. We can't just go back to the hotel and wait for it to finish, because we've got to get these recordings. We're there for a set period of time, and we have to make sure we press on. So we can't stop the bad weather. And of course, lots of hiking as well. And so having decent footwear, decent gear, and making sure you're comfortable is really, really important.